So on today's episode, this is going to serve as a live stream, but it's also a dual purpose of live stream. It's going to be the inaugural episode of the Unstuck Sessions Podcast. We have What's the Business with Brian and Brandy, and we're not abandoning that, but I will explain the concept of what makes the Unstuck Sessions podcast and brand as a unique entity within ISL Words. It's going to be equal parts live stream, podcast, and kind of a confessional. So that's what I have on today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. I'll get to you guys after the intro. Peace. All right, we're back. So today's episode, as you see the title, is Breaking the Bottleneck, Embracing Accountability for Business Growth. And I wanted to use this kind of as an accountability session for me. It might be eye-opening for you as a business owner, somebody that is either starting a business or looking at advancing in their career and stuff, and talk about the concept of why we created the Unstuck Sessions and what the first step is in fully getting yourself unstuck. And so it's a lot. It's a pretty heavy topic. And if I can't cover it all in one episode, we'll break it into two. And we're still taking questions. So if you got feedback, questions, whatever, feel free to drop them in the chat and I will try to answer them. Understand that with this platform, I don't always see who's commenting. So if you post a comment, I may not be able to see who you are. So drop your name so I can shout you out. So anyway, what we're going to do is I'll introduce the show and then introduce the topic. The show, this is a new venture for us. It's the Unstuck Sessions. And it really is about getting business owners either started or moving them ahead and addressing sticking points that they encounter along the way and obliterating those so they can move on to success. And the first step is the personal accountability piece. And this is something that hamstrings a lot of business owners. And I am using myself as an example. So you can hear a lot of self-referential kind of stories and misadventures from me about this stuff. Today, we're discussing an aspect of business success, which is how you may be the bottleneck in your own business and the importance of taking some accountability. And it's an ugly process, a sticky process, it's uncomfortable. And the challenge is balancing taking accountability with blaming yourself for everything that could possibly go wrong in the world. There is a balance, and this is addition, not subtraction. The idea is you want to take accountability so that you can add the skill sets that aren't as strong, but not diminish the ones you already have, or diminish your capabilities by crippling self-doubt, because that is a real thing. And it is about making sure that you are balancing those two things. There's going to be lots of personal stories in this one. But the reason why I was intrigued by this concept and the reason why I wanted to bring it to the live stream is this. The personal accountability journey is an interesting one. And I came to this revelation when it came to, because right now I'm a multiple business owner and my main business is Coach Mo Athletics. And I do the marketing, website design, all that stuff, video work, all the media and everything. And there is an important accountability piece that I'm going to jump into here. And it is taking, because at the end of the day, a lot of times business owners specifically, we think that our issues, if we're struggling in an aspect of it, and we're not getting what we want out of the business, we think that our issues rely, it's some lever that we can pull a lever and we're going to get more customers. And more customers is always going to solve the issues that are lacking. And unfortunately, learning the hard lesson that it's not always getting as many clients as humanly possible. And so there are different areas of accountability when it comes to the back part of a business. And I'll talk about the ones that I struggle with and trying to rectify here. But I had to sit back and look and say, okay, we are getting all the clients that we want. It's not a matter of volume of clients. I had to figure out what part was it. The clients we have are great. They're targeted. They're the people that we want to do business with. And so those areas, those check marks are checked. The marketing, it's bringing in the people that we want and redirecting the people that aren't exactly appropriate for our services. So that wasn't the issue. And the first one I'll get into is the accountability one. I had to sit down and look and say, things aren't exactly the way I want them because of things I'm not doing. That's hard. Ugh, that feels icky for a business owner to admit. It feels icky for anybody to admit, to be quite honest with you. It's really making sure that I am actually taking that level of accountability for the things that I want. Things aren't the way I want them to be 100% because of things that I've done or things that I've failed to do. And the only way I can address those is by rectifying the behavior. Now, for me, the big issue is a systems issue. I set the business up to be simple on the back end, and I haven't scaled that up to match the needs of the client base and match the needs of an expanding business. And so as such, it gets a lot harder to manage the amount of business that we're having and get the outcomes that we want because I didn't take the time to build the system to ensure things go the right way. And so I had to address that piece of it. So the first part of the accountability was addressing the systems issue. Okay. For me, after that, it was, do I have the skills to do it? And I do have the skills, but there's a couple of bottlenecks within implementing those skills. So the skills piece of it, I have the skills. I know what I need to do. And technically, I have the capacity to do it. Is it something that I'm actually good at? No. I am a big picture thinker. I'm not the greatest when it comes to intricacy of systems and things like that. I want to build it and then just let it run. And that's a challenge when you're dealing with client funnels and things like that. I think that's why my brain can't always easily wrap around the concept of marketing funnels. I've spent hours and hours building them. I've spent hours and hours implementing and trying stuff and reading books and asking people and stuff like that. But that is not a super strong point. I can think of the verbiage that goes into it and I understand the steps. But when it comes to more complex marketing funnels, that is a skill level that I'm currently building out. The next piece is, okay, so I don't have the skill or it's not exactly where I want it to be. So the next step is, where can I find somebody who could help out with this? And the person that can manage this complexity and is able to understand processes is my partner, Brandy. She understands how to put processes together and implement them. And that's her area of strength. So I'm the big picture thinker. I come up with the big ideas, but from the system standpoint, that is not an area of strength for me. And I have a couple of reasons why it's not, and I'll get into that. But I had to ask for help. And I think, to be honest with you, that's the area where business owners, because here's the reality, man. In this business owner world, especially when you're talking about social media and all the influencers and everything, when you see these business owners out here, man, they look like masters of their domain. Man, they look like they're on it. They got it all figured out, and they can tell you how to do everything. The thing that people don't really highlight, the thing that they don't really show, is the teams that are supporting these influencers, the teams that are supporting these business owners who are super visible on social media. So when you see Gary Vee out there doing the Gary Vee thing, and I know my boy Bill has some real interesting feelings on Gary Vee, but when you see Gary Vee out there doing the Gary Vee thing, there's an entire team working underneath him that allow Gary Vee to be Gary Vee and do the things that he's very strong in. And we as business owners are conditioned to, we can't ask for help. We're supposed to know how to do everything, and we're supposed to know how to implement everything. And then we're supposed to be able to train everybody that we hire to do things exactly our way. And on one hand, yeah, that makes sense. But on the other hand, if you ain't skilled in something, you have no business teaching somebody else how to do the same thing you're not skilled at. It's better to go hire or bring in somebody that knows how to do the thing that you can't do. And, you're hiring somebody who's smarter in one area of something or a few areas of something, and you're putting them to work. Does that mean they're smarter than you? No, but that means they have some capacities that you don't necessarily have. And so the asking for help is one of the toughest things as a business owner. It's challenging reaching out for help because you feel like you're responsible for the outcomes, and you are. But at the same time, you're nervous about bringing in the right people to help. And so that is the actual bottleneck that I ran into. The next piece is the growth aspect of it. And so with the CMA, and this is the example I'm using with Girls From Athletics, I built the website. That website is my baby. It's been running for 6-7 years. I've been trying to update the website, overhaul the website, and get the website to be exactly what I need the website to be. And instead of relinquishing that, and I was thinking about it, and my ego jumped in and said, no, man, this is yours. You couldn't figure this piece out. Instead of relinquishing that aspect of it, I tried in vain to make the simple website that I have operate for a business that's a little bit more complex than when I started. And it takes a lot of my time. And finally, I came to the revelation that I need to tag out on this and find a tool that does everything we needed to do. And we found the solution, and we've been talking to the representatives for the solution. And we've been very strident in asking them questions to address the different things that we've been needing the website to do. Because really, the growth of the CMA website has been because we've created like this Frankenstein thing where I've been assembling different bits and pieces and running wild with all the different automation things like if this, then that, and all those other ones that you plug in to make things work the right way. The website doesn't really cleanly connect to any kind of client relation management software, a CRM, without having to go to a service. And I know if this, then that, but there's another one that I use a lot and I can't remember on the top of my head. But it's basically a website that connects with other websites or social media. And when these specific things happen or actions happen on the website, the service will say, okay, this happened. So now we need to make this result. We need to generate this thing. And so it's an automation thing. And it works, but it makes it unwieldy because instead of dealing with one thing, you're dealing with multiple different things and multiple points of failure. And so the automation tools work really good until they don't. And if you need them, great. If you need to attach, if you can't really cleanly connect your website to a CRM, then absolutely go ahead. There's plenty of them out there. But if you don't have to, you want to find an integrated solution, or you want to have one custom built for you that does the things that you needed to do and it interfaces with the stuff you need to interface. Well, the website ended up becoming this unwieldy beast because I had to use a lot of these third-party integrations on it. And instead of addressing that and saying, you know what, this is where one of the points of failure is, this is one of the bottlenecks. The website's my baby. And frequently you don't want to criticize your babies. You don't want to chastise them. You want to give them the ability to grow into their shortcomings. And unfortunately, what we've been asking of the website, we're past dated on it. And it needs a big, huge update. And even once we update it, all the things that we needed to do, it's going to be reconnecting all the third-party things. And it's just too much of a headache. We're tapping out. We're asking for help. And we found our solution. So we're going to be moving forward with that. I talked about the skill part. I talked about the personal accountability part. I talked about the systems part. The delegation piece is challenging. And delegation falls under control. And I'm not a controlling person to an extent when it comes to my business. I do believe in the concept of bringing in people that can help and letting them do what they do. But there is a level of when you've actually built it yourself, relinquishing some of that control is a very challenging piece of it. And I see it with a lot of business owners I interact with on a day-to-day basis. It is hard to find good help. And the reason why it's so hard to find good help is because it's hard to let go of that bit of control. Because the help you bring in may not do things exactly the way that you do them. And instead of teaching to that and teaching them how to do the things the way that we want them done, either we jump in and do it ourselves, or we punish the help for not being able to be mind readers. So it's a double-edged sword. The delegation piece is important, but when delegating is work too, just because you delegate an item to somebody that you've hired, that doesn't mean that you just walk away and put your hands up. Because here's what happens. If you hand off a piece of work to somebody, and they don't know exactly what to do, or they don't have clean instructions or whatnot, or they do it the way that they know how to, but it's not the way that you want it. You don't punish them for it. You don't chastise them for it. You explore with them, okay, so what was your thought process on it? If they reach the same endpoint, then that's okay. You let them operate and reach their own same endpoint. But if they reach a different endpoint, then that's something that you actually have to do training on to teach them how to do it the right way. And instead of getting frustrated, instead of actually teaching that piece, business owners were conditioned to say, okay, this person obviously can't do what I asked them to do. And so now I got to do it myself. If that sounds familiar to anybody, is anybody in the same place with that? It gets really hard to delegate, and it makes it a challenging piece because we expect, when we delegate stuff, we expect people to do it our way. And even if we train them and give them plenty of training, sometimes it takes the reps, it takes the repetition for them to be able to do it cleanly our way. And sometimes it's understanding that our way may not be the best way, which is a challenging confession to make, because we've learned our way and it works for us, but it may not be the best or most efficient. And that is the beauty of hiring people, because they may be able to show you shortcuts that you didn't know existed. But that delegation piece goes into the control piece, where you are able to control the things that are within your control and not take accountability for the things that aren't outside of your control, or not feel like you are completely responsible for things that are outside of your control. That piece sounds great on paper. It sounds like a great thing to say. And I know it's part of the daily serenity prayer, but a lot of us don't really take that to heart. Instead of focusing on controlling the things that we can't control, we try to control the things that we can't control. And then we end up losing a grip on the things that we can actually control because we're not focused on. Focus is the last piece before I go on to the next session. Next part of this. Focus piece is hard. And that's the challenge. And that's the thing I mentioned earlier when it came to systems. For me, focus for creative types on one hand, sameness is painful. Let me repeat that. For creative people, sameness is painful. And then you slap the healthy code of ADHD on top of it, and mental discomfort is physical discomfort. And so when sameness is painful and boringness is painful, it gets really hard to stay focused on the things that are working for you. I own 2 businesses. I struggle with being able to grow one without feeling like I'm neglecting the other. And in hindsight, being 2020, I definitely would have just stayed in one lane instead of trying to conquer multiple universes. But the reality is I have 2 businesses with sets of clients that I'm managing, and I'm trying to do my absolute best to serve everybody. And the focus piece is hard because I have to be able to shift gears. I have to be able to focus on one thing, focus on another thing. And I've set up systems that allow me to do that, but it doesn't get any easier. And again, sameness for creative people is tough. Because new is great, man. New is wonderful. New is exciting. New things they're addictive, man. Doing new stuff, being able to try out and spread your wings and try new business ideas and business ventures. And that's exciting. And that's fun. Doing the same thing over and over is not. And no matter how successful that same thing is, after a while, it can get stale. And the people that they end up having success in this business thing are able to continue to do the boring stuff. And that hasn't been me. I have not been great with always focusing on the super boring stuff. But that's how you grow. And look at it like this, because now I'm spitballing here, but look at it like this. Look at the people that are the long-term business owners, the ones that, the masters of industry and all these other ones. You can have your feelings about them. I have my personal feelings about them, but the ones that have been in the game for a long time, I'm talking about 50 plus years, and they've conquered their industries. A lot of people have built their fortunes doing super boring things. Their businesses aren't exciting and dynamic, but the outcomes that their businesses create for them allow them to have adventurous and fun fulfilling lives. But their businesses aren't funny. The textiles industry is not exciting in and of itself. You look at Warren Buffett, the stuff that he's involved in, it's insurance, textiles, and all those other things. They're not the most fun, dynamic businesses. They're not the sexy businesses, but they're the boring businesses that people constantly use. And so he made his fortune with the boring stuff and learning how the boring things operate and how the boring things move. That's where the money is. When you look at family businesses that have been around for years and years, they're not the most exciting things in the world, but they built fortunes with learning how to do the boring stuff and talk about boring things. And it's not dynamic. It's not ever changing. And that's why when you look at a lot of the social media influencers that are hot now, it's going to be fleeting unless they learn how to pivot into something boring. And even the ones that have had success have taken the variety out of the way that they produce it. So I'll use like a Mr. Beast as an example. He systematized making YouTube videos that pop and that get a lot of eyeballs on them. But he systematized the back end of it. So it's not new or novel or anything else. It's, here are the things I know that work, and I'm going to keep doing them until they stop working. And then once they stop working, I'm going to see where the fall off was and tweak it and then put it something new. And we're going to keep doing that until it stops working. So he's taking the fun and adventure out of it and created something that makes money. Casey Neistat's another example. His videos are exciting and dynamic, but a lot of the stuff, he has a lot of techniques that are similar that cross videos. Editing styles, narrative styles, they're pretty much the same. He just recomposes them in different ways. And I promise you, he has a system, a checklist. As a matter of fact, I bought his film course. And his film course literally outlines the entire process of how he makes a movie or how he makes video content. There's a system behind it. And the system isn't exciting. And it doesn't change. The outcomes change, but the way that you implement it doesn't. And so the people that master the boring stuff are the ones that end up dominating their industry or field. They find out what works and ride it till the wheels fall off. For business owners, that, and especially if you're in the creative aspect, that is very challenging because you start seeing all these new things like, I designed this. Okay, so you design t-shirts. Now I want to design shoes. Oh, good. Well, now I want to design backpacks. Okay, so have you mastered every area of the other things? Probably not. But the novelty of the new thing and the new horizon to conquer is super seductive. And so instead of mastering one thing and getting super good at delivering that and blowing out every aspect of it and completely maximizing it, you're trying all these little tiny different new things. And in the process of doing that, you end up creating a bottleneck for yourself because you have to get good at 5 different things as opposed to one thing. And I don't know what school you went to, but it's easier to learn one thing at one time than it is to learn 5 different things at one time. So that's what it is. And so how that translates to what we're experiencing. I sell words and with Coach Mo Athletics. First with I sell words. I love to learn. I love to try new things. I love learning new things about video. I love learning new things about marketing. I'm constantly consuming content about marketing, video editing, and all the different new trends that are coming out and stuff like that. And different business models and different ways people are making money with marketing and things like that. Initially, I Sell Words started out as a copywriting service. Copywriting, for those that don't know, this doesn't have anything to do with patent law or anything like that. Copywriting, in the context that I'm using it, is writing stuff that sells. I sell words, writing words that sell. Writing landing pages and newsletters and sales letters and website things that sell and convert. And I ran into resistance when I first started it. And instead of leaning into that resistance, where somebody along the way said, well, I don't know any copywriters. I don't know anybody that does this. Instead of seeing that as opportunity, I saw it as, oh crap, nobody does this around here. And maybe I'm getting outdated information. And maybe this, that, and the third. Maybe I need to learn how to do X, Y, and Z. And maybe I need to learn how to lean more into video. And maybe I need to add more marketing services to my bag, as opposed to focusing on becoming a great copywriter. Y'all, I've written a book. It wasn't the most successful thing, but I've ghostwritten books and done stuff. So I have a little bit of success as a writer. Now, it's not the greatest success. And instead of learning from it, after I got that resistance, I ran away from it and went into other aspects of marketing. And that was a challenge. And so I took the copywriting skills I had, because I've always been a writer. I took the copywriting skills and tried to apply it to other aspects of it, and started just saying, okay, let me focus on growing your social media platform through the written word. And then it became through the recorded word. And now we're doing podcasts with lights and cameras and studios and stuff. And at each step of the way, there's a whole new level of skills to learn. And now I'm in this mode where I know how to do a lot of different things. But it's, what do I want to do and what do I want to focus on? I would love to just write. I would love to just write and podcast. But I've added so many different things to my bag, and I am actually doing well with writing newsletters for people and doing well with coaching people through building business platforms. I enjoy those, and I don't necessarily want to put those down. So now I've become a focused bottleneck, where I'm trying to focus on learning so many different skills in my bag that it buries me. And the thing that buries me the most is when I'm trying to communicate what my business can do. We can do anything when it comes to marketing. And we can do it pretty well. I am figuring out where I need to focus on. And that's a process. The thing that brings me the most joy is coaching other people and teaching them how to be successful. And sharing the multiple skills that I've learned and invested a lot of money into learning and sharing those skills. And so that's where the Unstuck Sessions come from. I want to teach people how to build their platforms and utilize the skills they have to focus on their areas of strength with growing those platforms, and then teach them how to focus on one thing at a time. And the reason why I want to teach people how to focus on one thing at a time is because I know the importance of focusing on one thing at a time, as opposed to trying to focus on 12 things at a time. And so I'm constantly growing. And I feel as the coach, I can teach you the pitfalls of trying to take on too many things at the same time. I got a big mouth, and I constantly bite off more than I can chew. And that's been the way it's been since high school. But I end up succeeding, and I've learned that even if I fall flat on my face, I have my requisite time of mourning and kicking myself, but I try to find the lesson in it so that I can get better next time. So that's what the Unstuck Sessions really is. And that's what brought about this whole podcast in the separate brand. This is a personal growth and development. You're going to grow along with me, and I'm going to grow along with you. And hopefully we can do this thing together. I'm going to move on to the next piece. Anybody have any comments or anything, feel free to drop them in. If you got any input or feedback, let me know. But let's talk about bottlenecks in your business. And a bottleneck is when you're driving down the highway and everything's going well, but then you see and you cringe when you're down to one lane in 1 mile. And it's a busy, you know that, oh man, you're flowing, but you're going to get to those one lanes where all the lanes have to merge together, and it's going to be slow driving. That's a bottleneck. When everything's flowing the right way, but you encounter something that slows you down. And so we're going to talk about how to navigate bottlenecks in your business and what happens when you take accountability for it and realize that you are the bottleneck a lot of times in your business. And it's not something external, something internal that you are well within your abilities and powers to fix. And I had to recognize this within myself. And so hopefully I can help other people recognize this within them. We're going to take a brief pause for the calls, and then we're going to come back and talk about bottlenecks in business. All right. So we're back. We're talking about bottlenecks in business and what happens when you are the bottleneck and how to recognize when you are the one that is limiting outcomes of your business. And we talked about how bottlenecks are similar to when you're cruising down the highway and then you see those signs that will make you cringe where it's like all down to one lane or one lane is closed. And you know there's a lot of people behind you and there's going to be a lot of merging coming up. It's going to completely slow down your flow and it's going to mess up your groove while you're on that one lane. And that's what a bottleneck is. Something that limits the efficiency and flow of your business. And it can be a cash flow issue. It could be something on the back end that's affecting other parts of your business. Maybe it's a skills issue. Maybe it's a control issue. So we're going to get into it and how to recognize when you are the bottleneck. We call the bottlenecks sticking points. So I'm going to use bottleneck and sticking point interchangeably from this point forward. Okay. So business owners will encounter bottlenecks or sticking points. First and foremost, the one that comes most prominently to mind is when you are caught between two decisions. You're caught between two different ways to make a decision. And instead of making a decision and leading into that decision and moving forward with that decision, what do a lot of us do? I know I'm guilty of it. We don't make a decision. We don't. We put off making the decision till we get to a point where we're more comfortable making the decision. But the reality is you're never going to be 100% sure with the decisions that you make. And so we want 100% certainty on everything we do and not being satisfied with 55% certainty. Sometimes 45% certainty where it might work out if we put the energy in towards it. We want the outcomes. We want assurance outcomes are going to be rock solid 100%. That is a very challenging thing and a daunting thing for business owners, to be honest with you. And so it's more comfortable to not make a decision than to make a decision and deal with potential negative outcomes. And so that ends up becoming a sticking point or bottleneck because we don't make the decision and then once we make the decision, we don't put metrics in place or trap doors in place to this wasn't the right decision. So we don't give ourselves an out for the poor decision that we made. We don't allow ourselves to pivot off of a bad decision. We go all in on it. It's the person at the table at the casino that is on a losing streak and they think that next chunk of change is going to turn things around as opposed to having the courage to say, okay, I've lost all this money. I need to get up and leave. And I don't need to throw bad money after good. I don't need to throw good money after bad money. But the decision-making piece is a sticking point and a bottleneck. And it's better to make a decision and that decision be the not right decision than to sit there with indigestion with their decision. Let's be honest. So that's one bottleneck or one sticking point that people come into. And looking at the time, y'all, I'm going to have to cut this into 2 episodes. I was thinking I was going to knock out it all in 1 episode, but it's going to have to be 2. The next bottleneck is the micromanagement piece where, okay, so you have somebody working with you. And instead of letting them do their job and do it the right way, you're hovering over them and you're checking in with them at every single step of the way. But instead of offering something constructive or allowing them to move forward, you're harping on bits and pieces that you don't like instead of looking at what the outcome is. It's the thing I used to get in trouble for in school all the time. I could solve math problems without showing my work. I don't know how some of those answers came to me, but they were the right answers. And I understand the concept of showing your work so the teacher knows what you don't understand. But then the other concept is if I show my work and then I start getting the wrong answer, then what does that say? And the micromanagement piece is where you are hovering so much over the people that are doing the work for you that you never allow them the opportunity to make mistakes and grow and learn. It's just harping on every single thing that they do wrong just because it's not the way that you want it done. That is a bottleneck within your business. Having employees is relinquishing control to a degree. You control the outcomes by making sure that the systems are in place for the employees to be successful. And if they aren't able to be successful within the framework that you set, then they may not be the right fit in that position. But you have to give them the ability to make mistakes. And I've bumped heads with supervisors I've had when I was in the working world about this thing, where I believe that people should be allowed to screw up. And then we teach to the screw up. Sometimes the screw up is too egregious to teach to. Sometimes it puts somebody in danger. We're dealing with other people. Sometimes when you're a caretaker, those massive screw ups are huge and debilitating and can really hurt you. But the smaller ones, you teach to them. You don't punish them for them, you teach them. And I bumped heads with people about that piece of it because I don't believe in punishing people for every single mistake that they make. And micromanaging positions you, puts you in the position to do that. It's the other extreme of not having any control over what people are doing with your business. And you're trying to have too much control. You're trying to assert your will. And yeah, you want your business to do things the way that you want them. But it's easier to build the systems and let the employees work within those systems that are going to allow them to be successful than to harp on them at every step of the way and never teach them anything. I hope I'm making sense with that. Okay. This goes into the lack of delegation. Now, this is the other extreme. This is where I do everything myself and I refuse to allow anybody else to touch it because they might screw it up. And you end up becoming the martyr for your own business because you refuse to allow anybody to help you. So instead of being completely hands-off, you're totally hands-on with everything. And you're out here doing things that you may not know how to do, or you may not be best suited for it, or you may not be the right person within the business to handle that piece of it. And that can be a bottleneck because you're not asking for people that know better to help you out. Lack of delegation. It's tough when you're a one-man operation. It's tough when you're a one-man operation looking to be a two-man operation or a three-man operation or four. You're looking to bring in other people. Okay. And then the other piece is lack of communication, where you delegate something to somebody, but you don't necessarily cleanly communicate, and you don't guarantee that they understand what you're asking of them. And they don't want to look stupid, so they don't want to come back and ask because they don't understand it. They're going to go out and give it their best effort. But the fumble is on your part if you don't cleanly communicate what your expectations are for somebody. And the lack of communication, it impacts a lot of different aspects of business. Because sometimes there's this thing called communication overhead where the more people you have working on something, the more people you have working on a project, the more and more of your time as the manager gets swallowed up with just communicating between different people, to where communication overhead is where communication finally becomes 100% of your job. And the other aspects of your job start falling apart because you're spending most of your time, you're spending all of your time just communicating from this person to this person. And the way you control that is making sure that your communication is clear, effective up front, so that people are clearly aware of what the expectations are. So we're going to go into the importance of accountability, and probably going to go for another about 15 minutes, and then we're going to cut it here and then come back to finish out. The importance of accountability. When you take accountability for things that aren't going right within your business and not looking to external factors, what that looks like is my business is not doing what I want it to do. And it could be we're not getting enough cash flow, or we're not getting the clients we want, or there's a gap in the quality of services we're providing, and that's going downhill. It's saying, okay, I can't blame the employees. I can't blame the customers. I can't blame other factors that are going on in the world that I have no real control over or agency over. I have to look at within myself and figure out what things as the owner am I doing that are bottlenecking these aspects of my business. And that's the hard truth. And that's the hard part, because that's hard for me. That's hard for me to say right now. And I'm trying to show y'all, it's hard for me to say to y'all right now, yo. It's hard to say my life isn't exactly where I want it to be. And that's my accountability. I'm not saying it's all fault. I'm not saying the word fault, but this is something that I have to improve for me. And I have the action to change the things I'm doing, change some of my behaviors, and then allow them to trickle over to other aspects of the business. So we're talking about accountability for business. Let's say that you run a business and you handle all the social media messaging and marketing. And as a result, posts aren't consistently posted. There's grammatical errors in the posts. Links that you put in the posts are broken. Clients that you want to maintain or want to bring in aren't connecting with the content you're posting. The bottleneck is you. It may be disconnect with the client base. It may be lack of attention to detail when it comes to punctuation and stuff like that. It may be that the thoughts that you have in your head, you're not good at putting into words, or the written words on social media. And this is where you do need to look for help outside, externally. There are tools online to help, Grammarly and things like that, that allow you to clean up some of the punctuation and stuff. I'm not saying that you're always going to have perfectly flawless, where everything's perfect, but when you're getting like egregious kind of things or things that deliberately don't make sense, it can be an incident where you just weren't paying attention and you were just trying to get something out there, or it can be an ongoing pattern where your command of the written word is not as good as your command of the spoken word. It can be anything. But now you need to get some help. You need to recruit somebody to help out with the social media posting. It may make sense to delegate some money or set aside some money so that you can offload this, hire a social media manager. You can do a freelancer, you can create the job within your business. But somebody who is better versed in communicating and getting outcomes on social media, you probably need to let them tap in and utilize them as a resource, because there's a part that isn't connecting, and that part is hard. Maybe you write great stuff for fun on social media, but when it comes to the business piece of it, it's not your strength. And part of learning is learning when to say, this is not a strength for me. Just not. Tap it out. I've had to do it. I've had parts where I've had to admit that I'm not strong with stuff and overshoot and overreach. And part of it is getting better by a day-to-day basis. This website for Coach Mo Athletics is a huge example of it, because I really prided myself on building the website myself, but now it's not doing exactly what I needed to do. And so now it's time to tap out and bring in somebody else who's better at it and walk away from it. And we have the resources to do it. So take advantage of it while it's there. The next piece of this thing is the focus aspect. I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I do want to speak to it. This world allows you, if you are independent, you want to be a business owner, you want to side hustle your way into independence, there are plenty of things that you can try. There's always something new that's coming up. There's always some kind of new way that somebody's making money. And newness is a drug. Novelty is addictive. And finding new ways to constantly create outcomes for yourself is a challenge. And focusing on the boring thing is not fun. It's just not. So here's what I'll say. The focus piece for me is hard because I'm trying to manage two businesses now. And again, instead of shuttering one or shuttering the other one, both of them are viable, and both of them I have accountabilities to. So it's a bed that I made, and I got to figure out the most comfortable way to lay in it. And I don't regret a minute of it. But I have to learn how to better focus on one aspect or one thing at a time, and not constantly try to find new things. And this is how it cuts in the business world. So you have a service that's working, and instead of dumping all your resources into maximizing that service that's working, what do? Oh, so I tried this thing. Let me try this thing over here because this thing's always interested me. And now I have the cash flow to try this new service. And so now we try this new service. And the new service has its hiccups and it dominates your time. And your focus on the new service starts drawing away from your attention to the old service. And the service that you really know and that's really been your moneymaker starts to fall by the wayside because you're dumping all your energy, attention, and resources into this new one over here. It's like getting the new puppy dog and you forget about the old dog that you have in the house. You can't afford to do that. You have to be able to divide your attention so that what the new puppy dog has all the love and nourishment and everything it needs, but you can't forget about the old dog that's been loyal to you and sitting in the house. That's a challenge. If every new service that you implement requires marketing for that service when you're in business. We're going to talk about, we're getting down to brass tacks here. Every new thing requires you allocating resources to effectively market it, effectively do customer service on it, effectively be able to provide it, and maximize it. So every new service that you start with your business requires all of those things. So it behooves you as the business owner to stay in your lane. And if you're going to jump into two lanes, make sure you have the time, resources, and manpower to effectively market the next service. And that is a piece that we haven't always been the best on. I have not always been the best on it because I come up with ideas left and right. And that's the big challenge, is constantly coming up with ideas. Because my mind is constantly going. I sleep and wake up with ideas. And the thing I've really tried to say is, okay, this is a great idea, but I can't implement it right now. I need to write it down and store it in my back pocket for when I have time and resources to start looking into it. And I can actually test it the right way and give it the nourishment it needs. Not bring the new puppy dog in the house and not give it any love and attention and just be enamored of the fact that it's new and not really give it what it needs. I've encountered it with a couple of different businesses I've worked with where the new idea feels great. It feels wonderful. It feels sexy. Oh man, I'm excited about it. And what happens is there isn't the mind space. I don't have the time to allocate towards it. I've run into it where I've been gung-ho about, we're going to get this new service in here. I'm going to learn everything about this new service and I'm going to implement it and I'm going to sell stuff and all this other stuff with this new service. And then I get into the weeds of learning the new service and the thorns start poking out. And I start getting stabbed by the thorns a little bit. And now the service that I do know and I have a mastery of starts to fall because I'm not paying as much attention and not giving it the nourishment and not giving it what it needs. So that's what I want to throw out there. Novelty can absolutely destroy a business. To close out, and then we'll come back next time. We'll pick up with overcoming. We'll teach you how to overcome some of these bottlenecks and what you can do. Homework for everybody, and I'll come back with my list too. I want everybody within earshot to sit down and think about where they may be the bottleneck in their business and be brutal with yourself on paper, not in real life. Let's say, this is the thing I don't know how to do, or this is the systems area that I haven't developed, or this is the piece that I don't quite understand. I am a control freak and I try to micromanage. I want you to sit down and write out where you may be the person that's limiting your success in your own business, the person that's creating the sticking points or bottleneck in your own business. So that's the assignment for everybody within earshot. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about how we overcome these bottlenecks. When we come back, I will have my list of places where I have currently a bottleneck in my business. And then I'm going to talk about, I'll be honest, I'll talk about on the next episode, how I start overcoming these things, what I need to do to overcome them, or how I've overcome bottlenecks or overcome me being the bottleneck or me being the sticking point and what's happened. So that's what we're going to do in part 2 of this. Stay tuned. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'm going to take this live stream and post it, but this is also going to be the inaugural podcast episode. So part 1 is going to be, are you the bottleneck in your business? And then part 2 is how to stop being the bottleneck in your business. This podcast will be talking about hardcore marketing and personal development stuff for business owners. So if you want to be a guest on the show, We can bring you in and talk about your hardships with marketing, the challenges that you've had with marketing your business, or maybe the growth pieces that you've had to learn to become a better business owner. Like I said, what's the business with Brian and Brandy's the holistic podcast? It's going to be all about the journey of the business owner. This one's going to be about how you grow as a business owner. So that's what I got. Thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you later, and I'll see you on the next episode. Make sure you do your homework. Peace.